All right, here we go. Hey, everybody. I don't even know what number of call this is. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go through, I sent you all the manual, but I'm going to go through this call today. And then as I was creating this call, like a 4 week kind of container came out of this because for me, this next step in my evolution, like my identity and changing my identity is key. Um, it's it's been a work in progress for a while now for me, probably since last September, really. But I have had to learn for myself who and how and what I identify as so that I can get a clear picture of where and what I need to be. So, what are my triggers? How am I identifying with certain things, especially having money and wealth? So, one of the things that happened when I was looking at that was I went to ChatGPT and I said, I don't remember what I was listening to, but I said, is there a difference between a rich person personality, is what I said in the ask, in the prompt, but and a poor person personality? And it said technically no, but we're going to go through what I came up with when I was asking all of these questions. And it really hit home with me because I was raised as having a poor identity mindset and really taught it was wrong to have a wealth or rich personality identity mindset. And then like all this stuff then aligns for me and the way that I understand it with my nervous system. And it's also why I find for myself that I can't manifest like what everyone else is saying, for me to sit down and just sort of try to feel the feeling of the wish fulfilled or just imagine what it is that you want to have. Like, that doesn't do it for me. For me, it has to be a part of who I am and how I choose and how I live my life and how I think and what I say and those aligned actions and things that I'm putting into my life. I guess for me, I also to manifest something, and it's funny because this is something that my son and I were talking about in the middle of the night last night because he was flying home from Munich. But he's a great manifester, and sometimes I run things by him, and I said, do you think that sometimes we aren't able to manifest what it is that we want because it's not what we truly desire or what we truly need or what we've actually put into our, I'm going to say vortex, like that's a Abraham Hicks term, but like when you're asking for something, ask like, do I really want this? Or is this me just comparing myself to someone or something else and thinking that that's what I want? But to me, that's why it's so important for me to have this clear, I don't want like container, but it's like a fluid container around my identity, because I'm not the same person that I was 50 years ago. I'm not the same person that I was 25 years ago. I'm not even the same person that I was last year. Like, I think about myself last year and I'm like, oh my God, like so much has changed for me. So for myself, it's just been really important to get a clear view and image of who I am and who I want to create as myself for my future. My future becomes then very important. And when I do that, I'm also very aware of how I'm focused and what I'm focused on. So I've found also for me a key to manifestation and creating and receiving what I desire, those things that I actually truly desire don't have a charge around them. And it's really easy for me to have this sort of ease with the uncertainty of how it's going to come or how it's going to show up. So for instance, I have a desire to have some measurements or measuring, some way to measure the brain waves and heart coherence when I'm working with my clients in some of the energy healing modalities that I do, because I'd really like to license one of the modalities that I practice with my clients. And this one lady had told me that she was going to invest and buy the equipment and be an investor in that for me, because she really believes in that modality, because she comes and receives it once a week. Well, she had changed her mind and decided that she wasn't going to do it, because now she wants me to talk to a neuroscientist and go down this totally scientific pathway, which maybe I'll still do, but that's not where I want to get started. Where I wanted to get started was just with equipment that was readily available for consumers that would at least give me a baseline of information that I want to have in order to have enough documentation to produce for either partners or a lawyer or whomever to get my modality licensed. So when she said that, I sort of went into a little bit of an upset, but I was also like, well, okay, whatever. And I can remember thinking in the back of my mind, and this was weeks ago, if it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. So I had mentioned it to someone else, and just last week, they asked me, hey, did it ever turn out that that lady invested or whatever? And I said, no. She changed her mind, and now I'm just kind of seeing what comes up and blah, 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 whatever. And then he says, I'm going to Venmo you right now and send you the money for that. So the purpose of that story is to have an example of, I really had a desire around something, but I didn't hold it as like super significant, and I didn't make it that it was never going to come. I was just, like when I tell that story about Quinn and his tuition, when we put that manifestation out there of what we desired, it was like, it's going to happen. I just don't know how or when it's going to show up. But then I kind of let it go, and it wasn't in my mind, and I wasn't like ruminating on it all the time, and I wasn't asking ChatGPT or other AI about it, and I wasn't like doing research about it, and I still was working with the plan. I was still in the aligned action of this will happen, and I'm still going to do my work, and I'm still going to talk about it, and I'm still going to figure out all these other pieces because it's so dynamic, and I need to figure out marketing, and I need to redo the manual, and I need to talk to other people about it. So there's so much information and things that I could do, and I think had I put too much energy or emphasis or like excess potential, like what the Dean Zealand says, if I put too much excess potential on something happening, for me, it doesn't fucking happen. And I get really frustrated then that it's not happening. And why is this not happening? And when is it going to happen? And oh my God, like I just start to spiral out, and I go into overthinking, and it makes it worse, and it doesn't come. So for me, again, I think that part of the key, sorry, I have a space heater and I'm trying to get the right heat at the right distance. It's fucking cold here, people. So for me, it's, I want my nervous system to be calm enough so that I don't fucking freak out anymore. I'm tired of being a fucking freak, man. And recently I've been thinking about moving, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm thinking about like when I was a little girl and we lived in Honduras, um, we didn't have a lot of stuff, and everybody was very relaxed. And I think in America we're not so relaxed, and right now I feel a collective energy around everybody being very upset about the state of where things are at in our country. And I'm not saying that that stuff is good or bad, political, whatever. I'm just saying I'm aware of it. I do send it like different energies and different prayers, and I'm hoping that people are okay and safe. And at the same time, I'm just very aware that that energetic collective consciousness that we have around us all right now is very disruptive. I find it very, I personally, pretty much not every client, but a lot of my clients, when they come in, their nervous systems are so dysregulated from watching the news and listening to what's going on and having all these opinions and points of view. And it's just, and so for me to have to regulate their nervous systems all the time, I just go neutral, because there's, to me also, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but there's no right or wrong here in any of it. Like, everybody's going to try to be right. Everybody's going to try to make everyone else wrong. We're not looking at the bigger picture of it all. We're not taking in all of the information. Nobody's asking enough questions, my interesting point of view, including myself. So again, for me, it's to have the clearest picture of myself and who I am, to know myself so much so that when something gets off balanced or kiltered or not happening when I think it should, I'm not dysregulated. And that is a wealthy person's nervous system. So today I want to talk about orientation and stabilizing identity for reliable manifestation. Gosh, I talked for 20 minutes already, or maybe it was 10. We kind of talked a little bit in the beginning, but might have to make this, well, like I said, I think it's going to be like a 4-week series. So a rich or wealthy nervous system is coded like this. Orientation equals authority, baseline, adulthood. Stabilizing the identity is nervous system and causality. And then reliable manifestation is inevitability, not a desire. So that, going back to what we said a couple of weeks ago about like, of course it's going to happen. And that was the thing with the devices that I am looking at getting for measuring my modality. Is I had this background feeling of course it's going to happen. And I didn't need to talk about it. I didn't need to bring it up in conversations. I didn't need to have a story about it. I mean, I could have had a story about that lady who said she was going to invest and then she didn't, and blah, 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 blah. I have a story about the weather right now. I have a story about my finances overall in general right now. I have a story about my body right now. I have we have all of these little stories that we keep overthinking and ruminating about in our heads. And I think with a clear identity and a clear vision and a clear idea about who we are and what we want and where we're going and why, that's part of the identity for me too. And the orientation part too is like, why am I choosing this? What am I doing? Like what the fuck? So orientation is how we enter this work. It stabilizes the nervous system so money, love, sex, magic, and manifestation stop being dramatic. I think Amanda just had an energetic shift there. I love it. All right, so let's open this container. Let's take a couple of deep breaths. And I want you to get your shoulders down. Hopefully they're not up around your ears anymore. Relax your shoulders, relax your neck. Oh, relax your jaw. Feel grounded, connect to the earth. What happens when we don't feel overstimulated? What happens when we're not chasing something? What happens when we're stabilized? What does that look like for you? What does stabilization look like for you, feel like for you? What happens when you take the noise out of the system so your inner signal can become trustworthy again? So last couple weeks, we talked about chaos to calm, and this week we're going to talk about calm to orientation. The kind of calm and orientation where you don't need urgency to feel alive. So we're going to remove urgency from the field, from our field, from your field, so reality can reorganize. It's remembering that you're not broken. Nothing needs to be fixed. But when urgency is running your system, sometimes you'll call it intuition, and it won't be. So I want you to get out of reaching. I want you to get out of forcing. And I want you to get out of asking this reality to prove something. So let's orient. Let's get into orienting. So is there a rich, quote unquote, personality type? No. That's a statistically observable wealth. There is a statistically observable wealth personality profile, but it's not competence plus manifestation plus morning routines. There is a rich orientation, and we talked about orientation last week. Remember, we talked about the moment you stop forcing and start with witnessing. Orientation is not positive thinking. It's not reassurance. It's not calm down. Orientation is the decision to remain present without collapsing the field. It's non-reactive authority. So when you think about personality, you're thinking about it as like cosmetic. And when we're thinking about orientation, we're thinking about that as like gravitational. So when we can orient our identity, we can have that gravitational pull by just being to what it is that we're asking for. Orientation is the decision to remain present without collapsing the field. So it's like that decision to choose presence when everything is in mumbo jumbo and upset. And I think for some of us, we're going to feel that right now, right? With Neptune going into Aries. I did a little research on that this morning. I think that Amanda could probably fill us in on more of that, but that's just like a huge shift right now in like the planetary alignment. And I don't know that we have to like have a strict practice of understanding all of that all the time. I think there is a great benefit to knowing that. I'm not a scholar of it. I'm just a voyeur of it, I guess. But I know there's something to that, that when different things are happening in the cosmos, I definitely feel something around it. Something's happening. Okay. So when we're talking about orientation, we're also talking about non-reactive authority. And I'm not saying that reactions are wrong. I think that we can be informed by our responses on our reactions. But what I'm also aware of for myself is as I learn and become a scholar of my own identity, is that this clickbait culture that's out there is just, I'm so over it. I'm over all of the, oh, you've got to have this and you've got to have that, and there's this call and there's that call, and I made $10,000 last month. Don't you want to have my course or my program? Like, there's so much out there on social media about clicking this and clicking that and buying this to get rich quick, fast, and blah, 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 blah. But that has nothing to do with who we are as human beings, who you are as a person, who you are as an individual, your depth, what you're bringing into the world. And for me, I was going down that rabbit hole for a while because I'm trying to learn how to be marketable in this reality. And honestly, I don't want to do it how everybody else does it. I don't want to clickbait people into my programs. I want people to choose my programs because they know it's going to create something greater or different for them. I don't know how many people will want that, but you know. So orientation says, I won't force an answer to relieve sensation. So I don't know how many times I am in an uncomfortable place and I try to get myself out of it and I make myself wrong for being in it. And Amanda texted me earlier today and I'm like, girl, just hedonistically feel it. You know, like what if we just hedonistically went into the grossness of how we're actually feeling and not try to make ourselves wrong for having a moment of upset or upside downness or frustration or like, why is this not here yet, right? Like, I don't think that that's gonna block your manifestation. I think what's gonna block something from coming to you is you not actually knowing who the fuck you are. Not really. Orientation also says, I won't choose prematurely to end discomfort. So how many times have you clicked on something or bought something or ate something or wanted to have something? I know I have. I'm not shaming or blaming anyone. I'll do it right now. Say, yep, I drank a bottle of wine this weekend. But how many times do we choose we choose something fast so that we can get out of that uncomfortability? My son says, embrace the suck. You got to embrace the suck, Mom. You got to embrace the suck. I think he learned that from there was like a Navy SEAL or something that had a book out that was like, embrace the suck. But it's those times where we have to do things that we don't really want to do. Like I'm getting ready for a class that I'm teaching this weekend about energy mastery. And it's not that I didn't want to do it, but it takes sometimes hours for me to sit down and like jam out that content for 2 8-hour days or whatever it is, and to really get into the mode or the groove of what is this actually going to be. I am getting out of having to prove anything, but at the same time, my identity, who I am as a teacher, leader, master, my mastery in my own identity is that when people come to my courses or my classes, you leave like you feel like you should have spent $10,000 on that weekend and I only asked you for 500, you know? I want people to have so much more value from what they receive from me than what they actually paid for. Like I want to not overgive, but like be in it and with it so much so that you do have a grand experience and knowing that I spent some time. It's not like I just bought a manual and now I'm reading out of it and teaching you, something. It's not surfacey level stuff. It's deeper than that. So orientation also says, I can stay here and let relevance reveal itself. That one's hard for me sometimes, to be patient. Access Consciousness has a great question that sometimes I forget to ask, and it's, what's right about this I'm not getting? What's right about this I'm not getting? What's right about all this freaking snow and Arctic cold blast that I'm not getting? And no sun for days. Yay! But when we get that, having an orientation of I won't force, I won't choose prematurely, and I can stay here and be patient, that's when the effort dies. Because when we're in all of that, when we can't be with the uncomfortability, when we've got to end the discomfort, when we've got to relieve the sensation, when we have to when we're so impatient, then we go to effort, right? And then we're like, okay, what can I do? And how do I have to do this? And blah, 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 blah. And it's like, just sit. It's okay. Rest, relax. If you can't tolerate orientation, you will keep manufacturing chaos by forcing closure. You will keep manufacturing chaos by forcing closure. So poor identity relates to money, rich identity positions reality. That's that presence, that's that patience, that's that thing where you're just like, hold it, not quite yet, hold it, okay now. That holding period part, that waiting part is so hard for me sometimes. So wealth is not a vibe, a habit stack, or a confidence posture. It's the absence of entanglement with outcome. So in that sense, there is sort of a rich person or a rich or a wealthy personality or identity, but it's not the way it sounds on TikTok. So there is a statistically observable wealth personality profile, but it's not confidence plus manifestation plus morning routines. That's influencer cosplay. The real truth is the common traits of people who become rich, not just look rich. They're emotionally boring about money. Rich people don't dramatize money. They don't spiral, fantasize, or morally load it. Money is a tool, not a mirror of self-worth. And I don't know about you, but I've heard that a lot of times when it comes to like other manifestation techniques and teachers. They talk about, well, your money issues are a mirror of how you think about yourself and your self-worth. And I don't think so. If you're highly emotional about money, you will leak it every time. Another common trait of a rich personality is they tolerate delayed gratification better than the average. And it's not about willpower, it's a time tolerance. They can hold an uncomfortable position longer than others without panicking. Most people sell, quit, or change identity too fast. Rich personality types separate identity from outcomes. A poor mindset says, if this fails, then I'm a failure. A rich mindset says, oh, that failed, what's next? There's no melodrama, there's no self-story, there's no victimization. Rich personality types think in leverage, not effort. And I'm moving into this with my business. How many times can this pay me? So when I'm doing one-on-one sessions, that's not scalable because that one-on-one session can pay me one time and I have to be there for it and show up for it every single time. Also, rich personality types ask, who can do this instead of me? So like, who can do all my marketing for me? Who can do my administrative work? Who can do my accounting? Who can clean my fucking house? Rich personality types ask, what compounds? That means this hard work without leverage equals exhaustion. So rich personality types are selective with their empathy. And that used to get me all the time because I'm a fucking healer. And when you say that out loud to most people, it will offend them, but it's true. Rich personality types can care deeply, but not indiscriminately. They do not let other people's emotions, crisis, or opinions run their decisions, especially their financial decisions. Boundaries create wealth, period. Rich personality types are more pragmatic than moral about systems. They don't argue with reality. They don't need the system to be fair to use it well. They ask, how does this actually work? Then they position themselves accordingly. So what most people get wrong, there isn't actually a universal rich personality. or rich identity. There is a common nervous system profile, though, which is what we were just talking about. Lower reactivity, high risk calibration, not recklessness, strong internal authority, and comfort with being misunderstood. If you're trying to become rich by copying aesthetics, habits, or affirmations, you're playing dress up. Wealth follows emotional regulation plus strategic thinking plus leverage, not vibes. There's a science to money. It's of this reality. If we weren't here, we wouldn't need it. And really, it's just because we have bodies. Bodies require money. Infinite beings, souls, spirits don't require money.
Rebecca, can you say that again? Wealth follows emotional regulation
plus strategic thinking plus leverage.
Thank you.
Yeah, not vibes.
Good vibes, man. Oh, I gotta plug my computer in.
Okay.
It might die.
Okay. So here's a hard truth. You may already have the perception and pattern recognition of someone who could be very wealthy. So what will block you isn't skill. It's over feeling money and over relating to other people's nervous systems. Rich people don't absorb the room, they set it. So how can we operate? How can you operate at that level? Stop romanticizing struggle and start treating money like physics, not poetry. So I went through, I believe, I want to make sure. Okay, yeah. So let's map the rich nervous system versus the healer nervous system. And I understand that, like, not all of us on here are healers. I guess what I'm sort of asking you to consider yourself as is maybe spiritual, the what we might think of like non-physical nervous system. Someone who's not totally integrating themselves in this with this reality sort of thing. I think you'll get it once we go on. Okay. So the core difference is the healer nervous system default is co-regulation plus attunement. And the rich nervous system default is self-regulation plus allocation. So what I'm talking about when I say healer nervous system is when you walk into a room and you can feel everyone else's stuff, energy, and it starts to upset you, or it starts to dysregulate you, or you start to feel like you have to co-regulate with it in order to balance it. That's sort of like the poor nervous system, someone who's going to stay poor. The rich nervous system is self-regulation, where you're just neutral, like, oh, isn't that interesting? You have infinite grace and infinite allowance, and you can allow people to have their upsets and their dysregulation and their temper tantrums, and it doesn't rock you. You just go, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. Or, this is my house, my kitchen, and if you want to throw that temper tantrum, that's fine. Go upstairs and do it in your room. You just can't do it right now in the vicinity of where I'm at, because I'm dancing around, drinking a glass of wine, and making dinner. When you're done, come down and eat with me, right? Like, Amanda and I have been talking about living together for a little while again, and I'm like, I can do that with Amanda. Like, if Amanda needs to be throwing her temper tantrum, she can do it. Go do it in your room, sister. If I need to be upset and crying and doing my bullshit, she'll be like, okay, well, go feel that way for a little while, but then come back and watch a movie and eat popcorn with me when you want to, when you're feeling better. But that's just it. Like, people don't have a clue that they have an energetic footprint and that they're responsible for that. You're responsible for your energetic footprint. You're responsible for your regulation. You're responsible for what you are putting out there into the world. We'll talk about responsibility later, but that's part of it. Most healers are trained explicitly or implicitly to track people. Most wealthy operators are trained to track systems and patterns. So start looking at systems. Start looking at patterns. Don't look at the emotion. Don't look at the energy. Don't even feel that shit anymore. Maybe not always, but I think you're getting the point. Like, just in general, track the system, track the pattern, look at the information, look at the data. If you just look at it like that, there's no emotion, there's no dysregulation. It's just interesting. And it's neither of those is better, like tracking people or tracking systems and pattern. Nothing's right and nothing's wrong. But if you try to build wealth while your system is still optimized for relational rescue, you will feel chronically pulled, over-responsible, and financially porous. You will leak. So here's what each nervous system rewards. The rich nervous system personality traits: observable and trainable. Low emotional volatility around money. Money just equals data. It's not your identity. High rich people, again, they have a high delay tolerance. They can hold their position without needing relief. Hold it. Hold it. Not yet. Not yet. Okay, now go. Maybe we should all start doing like planks, like those are really hard for me to not give into, like holding a plank for 2 minutes. God fucking damn. All right, boundary reflex. Rich nervous system does not automatically say yes to soothe anybody. Rich nervous system is outcome detachment. No self-collapse when results fluctuate. Not attached to the outcome. Again, when they talk about manifestation and like imagining things, I gotta go more like 60,000 foot view. I'm not gonna imagine a certain place. I'm gonna imagine maybe more of a lifestyle, or maybe more of what it is that I would like to sort of have. Like, I would like to live somewhere super warm most of the year and come visit my son and have the ability to travel and work as a digital nomad and see client. I do like seeing clients one-on-one, so I would still like to do that. I just don't have the desire or the need for that to be my sole income, which is different than what it used to be. I used to love that. I used to want that all the time. Like, yes, come get on my table and let's get yummy together one-on-one. It was beautiful. I love what I learned about myself and others in those times, in those sessions. All right, rich nervous systems have risk calibration. They're not fearless, they're precise. Again, it's like looking at everything as if it were information. Rich nervous systems have decision compression. They make fewer decisions, or they make faster decisions and less rumination. So they allow their decisions, they allow their choices to inform them or to bring about an awareness, and then they're not attached to the outcome. Yes, I chose that. That's what happened. Okay, cool. What do I want to choose next? Moving on. Rich nervous systems are status indifference. They're not attached to their status. And I'm talking about real wealth and real, I'm not talking about the wealth that you see on the Kardashians or whatever the fuck that is. I'm talking about legacy wealth. I'm talking about a wealth that is even beyond what you have in your bank account. Priceless wealth. Wealth nervous systems, rich nervous systems are systems that have orientation. They think in throughput. They think in constraints. They think in levers. They think in systems. They think in information. They have self-trust, but it's not tied to social approval. Their inner authority is louder. Their nervous system signature is grounded, sparse, non-reactive, and not easily hooked. The wealthy nervous system is not excited by money. It's unimpressed, unhurried, unattached, and uncoercible. So when we're thinking about money and the desire to have money, distract yourself with something else. What is it that you're so here to live for? Why are you living? What is your life actually about? Rich beings do not reach for money. They create conditions money moves towards. So that's being strategic. That's having systems. That's having an orientation. So the key markers there are low novelty reactivity. Money does not spike dopamine or cortisol. It is not a reward or a threat. High ambiguity tolerance. Rich nervous systems can sit inside, not yet, without negative collapse. And they are non-absorbed. They do not absorb empathy. They perceive suffering without metabolizing it. But that is why many spiritual entrepreneurs stay poor. They confuse compassion with absorption. Absorption disables the field, and stability attracts capital. So without this, nothing else sticks. Not strategy, not manifestation, and not offers. All right. It is at the hour. How's everybody doing? I know, Amanda, you just took a pause.
I'm hungry and need to use the bathroom.
Well, we can stop. I mean, it is an hour. We've been on for an hour. Natalie, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm gonna need to stop to get ready for my client.
Yeah, of course. I've told you that we would try to keep these to an hour. Okay.
And next week I won't be on the call. I just wanted to share.
Okay, great. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, we can stop for right now. I feel like that's kind of an abrupt stop, but we'll keep this kind of going again next week. Like I said, it was sort of like a 4-week thing that was coming in that I was working on. So I just wanted to get that first part out of identity with the orientation. Next week, we'll talk more about, we'll have there's some stuff in the manual that I already sent you, but some different protocols and things like that. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming on today. Mwah! I'll download this and put it on YouTube, and we'll come back next week. Bye.
Bye.